the actors did call them mega-DAY-oos.
Which, so here's the thing. That's funny in two ways. One, because... Well, it's funny in three ways. One, because how did you fuck up mega-DAY-oos? It's so easy. Two, it sounds like you're talking about big shits. Welcome to Mortified, the Friendship Quest, a podcast where two long-distance friends bounce media recommendations, all in hopes the other will like it. I'm Aaron.
And I'm a robot tunnel.
And this week, we hop back into our noir mecca with the Big O. Before we debate how to pronounce mega-DAY-oos, remember you can help us on Mortified, the Legitimacy Quest by subscribing to us on YouTube, iTunes, or Spotify, signing up for our monthly newsletter through the link in our show notes, or following us on Twitter and Tumblr at MortifiedPod. Leyla...
Aaron?
We've got another listener recommendation this week, don't we?
Yeah, thanks to our listener Alicia, who wanted us to do The Big O, a show I remembered existing on Adult Swim, and then I think both of us struggled to find.
Yeah, I had to get the site off of High Dive, which is a great site for like a lot of older anime. It's what I used to watch a very good space anime a couple years ago, but yeah, that's where I watched it. But yeah, I could not find it on like regular streaming services.
Yeah, I had to use some methods my ISP wouldn't necessarily appreciate, if you catch my drift.
They're fine. They'll live.
They will. But it was... the weird part is that the version of the show that I found, which was made in 1999, was the Blu-ray remaster. Like, it looked really crisp.
Weird. I was wondering, because I read through your notes, and I was like, I am not getting that in mine.
No, I got some nice contrast, some nice reds. It was lovely.
Excellent. Great. Yeah, Leyla, do you want to go ahead and summarize what the Big O is all about? Because despite what the name is, it's not all fun and games.
No, so The Big O is an episodic series about a city where every citizen lost their memories 40 years ago, and no one knows why, or frankly gives a shit anymore, because they've all collectively decided that it's easier to just move on with their lives. Roger Smith is the best negotiator in town, supposedly using his +9 charisma stat to save the citizenry. He also secretly pilots a giant robot, or mega-DAY-oos, called the Big O. In the first couple episodes, he rescues an android called R. Dorothy Wainwright, and the two of them do very little negotiating, but a lot of saving the day. Every once in a while, Roger bumps into a hot lady named Angel, who has scars on her back, where her angel wings would have been, and she's looking for memories, and even this louse has to come face to face with the mysteries of the past. Dun, dun, dun!
Yeah, I mean, that's really it. Like, there is an overarching story, but, like, by the time we got through the first 13 episodes, which was the original run, the story was kind of, like, only just getting ramped up, and then it gets cut off. Like, it's a complete, like, to be continued, never gets continued until the rights get reacquired, like, a couple years later. But it's very strange. Like, we can't really tell you what the plot is. I mean, I guess we could, because we both looked it up on Wikipedia, but I don't know that we should.
It's silly.
It's a lot. It's
really silly.
Angel turns out to be a big robot. It's fine.
Yeah, we'll get into it. You want to talk about our characters?
Yeah, let's talk about our negotiator. Roger Smith is basically Batman in the Ace Attorney's body, right?
Yeah, so it's funny because he hates lawyers, but he looks like Goth Phoenix Wright.
Yeah, 100%. And like, that's his whole thing, is that he's rich. He literally has a butler who we'll get into. And like, he drives a Batmobile type thing. It's a car that like shoots missiles and has guns and whatever. And he has a big robot that he pilots around. His whole deal is that like he got let go from the military, and like now he's just like a private eye essentially. And he is kind of like a pretty standard noir like protagonist. I think like he's exactly like the noir private eye that you imagine. I guess My big reference point for noir before we watched Cowboy Bebop was the pastiches of noir that appeared in Calvin and Hobbes. But like that's kind of what I imagine him as, down to him imagining himself as like kind of a moody, detective that's like always in his whiskey, but he's actually just kind of a dolt.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's Roger Smith basically. What do you think about him?
My question is, does he suck at his job?
I mean, he gets results.
Does he? Okay, so Roger Smith is a negotiator. We see him negotiate 3 times in 13 episodes. Mm-hmm. And he fails all 3 negotiations.
Yeah, he does kind of suck at them.
I think he just gets by on being big and hot.
I mean, that makes sense. If I was Roger Smith, I would try to do that too. But yeah, I mean, like the first one, like he gives up the money and then he has to get the money back it's like a rocket boosted suitcase, but then they shoot it and then the money just all falls out.
Did you notice when he goes to the farm? Because Roger is very big. That's a capital B big. He's a large triangle-shaped man. Did you notice he was comparatively small to everyone on the farm?
Yeah, like they're all just like huge potato men, like enormous hulks. It was very funny to see him just like a little guy.
I would have loved to see them in not Gotham. But it is Gotham, but it's not Gotham.
Well, I mean, so this is a stupid comics thing, but like, so Gotham is based on Chicago, right? That's my understanding.
I don't know.
Okay. I believe that's true, and then Metropolis is based on New York, but this is just New York City because they talk about the Hudson River and they reference JFK Airport at one point. So I'm pretty sure Paradigm is just New York City.
All right, great.
Okay, not that it doesn't matter. Like I just thought that was.
I just am picturing Paradigm City, and it's all in domes now. Mm-hmm. What a wild little parallel universe they've invented. Okay, but they still celebrate Christmas.
Yes, that's true. That's a very important thing.
Very important, and it's more corporate now than before, which is
great. It's like Paradigm Day or some shit, but
yeah,
it's fine. Should we cancel Roger Wainwright is what I'm thinking.
Oh, what are we canceling him for?
Is he just too horny?
You know what's funny? He is, but he doesn't do anything about it, which I think is fine.
I guess that's nice, but like he's always like the second time he meets Angel, he's like, "Oh, I've seen those curves before."
Oh yeah, that was gross.
Sir, we live in a society. You can't just say that.
That was gross, but on the flip side, when him and Angel are trapped in that building and she's too hot, like physically hot, and she like strips down, he doesn't make a comment about it. He makes some like corny goofball comment where he's like, "Oh, I'm trapped in this house with a beautiful woman and she's not throwing herself in my arms to protect her." I was like, all right, sit down, cringe bastard. I think if we're going to cancel him for anything, it's for
actually, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Sorry, I forgot about the actual cancellation, which we will get to. Let's talk about his ward. How you feel about our Dorothy Wainwright?
Oh, God, I love her so much.
Kicks ass.
She's an android shaped like a girl. Specifically, she's shaped kind of like the women bathroom signs.
Yeah, like she has a permanent metal skirt.
And she's very she like tries to imitate humans. There's a lot of smaller arcs about how, she learns to play the piano with more heart. She gets a cat at one point. There's a lot of stuff like that. But my favorite thing is when she does freaky robot shit on purpose. Mm-hmm. Like she'll just contort herself. She'll fling her weird little metal body around. It's dope. I don't get to see a lot of girl androids actually get like her little headband is a CD-ROM and it has a light, and sometimes she'll pop her forehead out just to have a flashlight. She rules. I love Dorothy.
She's great. I mean, like, yeah, I think we've been established as being fans of like the father-daughter combo on this show, and I mean it's an effective archetype, right? I guess I'm thinking of that character from BioShock, Elizabeth. I feel like that's probably a pretty common trope, but like even like I don't know why I'm pulling all these video game references, but also The Last of Us, right? Joel and Ellie, like this is a thing that's been done, for centuries, right? But I think it's effective because it's like it's nice to see someone being like, okay, I'm gonna help somebody out. This girl is a manufactured person, right? So she doesn't really have a place here. I'll take her in. She is required to wear all black because that's Roger's stupid uniform requirement, which she hates. And she's like, you're a fucking louse, Roger Smith. And he's like, yeah, that's not the first time a woman's called me that. But yeah, I love Dorothy.
Then there's Norman, and the funny thing about Norman is that, so me and you both did some Wikipediaing, I think, independently, and I found out that one of the writers on the Big O wrote on Hellsing, which I don't know if you're familiar with Hellsing.
I know you're extremely familiar with
I'm
Hellsing.
Extremely familiar with Hellsing, but do you remember, there's a scene, Norman is the butler, right? He's the Alfred.
He's Alfred, yeah.
And he's extremely cool because he knows how to maintain this giant robot, and nobody knows why or how, but nobody questions it. Because again, everyone lost their memory, so he just knows how to do it without knowing why. And he also, during the cat episode, levels, what was it? It was like a 50 cal?
It's a 50 caliber machine gun, yeah.
Yeah, out of nowhere, this skinny old man. And, when Roger's, trapped underwater, he's ready to go on a rescue mission. It's a whole thing. I realized literally a minute ago that he is Alfred, but he's also the butler from Hellsing, who is extremely cool and does a lot of murders with wires. So if the Hellsing writer was involved anywhere, I do think he was involved with Norman, is the thing.
Yeah. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention regarding credits is that Roger Smith is voiced by Steve Bloom, who is just a huge person in the voice acting industry. You probably know him as Spike Spiegel or Orochimaru. So huge. And then Leyla, you also looked up who voices Dorothy, which very, very loyal listeners will recognize.
It's our girl Shion Uzuki from Xenosaga.
Yeah, I bet you didn't think you were going to get a callback to the Xenosaga franchise, did you, listeners?
And then I couldn't unhear it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I was like, I know who voices this, I just don't know who it is. And then when you pointed it out, I was like, oh, this is obviously Dr. Uzuki, of course.
And then Angel, who, whenever her and Roger would talk, I would, some weird scratch was happening in the back of my head. I was like, something's right about this, and I don't know what. And I looked it up. She's Faye fucking Valentine.
Yeah.
So Spike and Faye just got brought back here because the voice acting industry is 3 people wide at any given time.
Yep. So, yeah. Do we have thoughts on Angel?
She's, I like that her hair changed sometimes.
Yeah.
That was neat. I'm distracted by the fact that she's a robot. Do you have any thoughts on her?
Yeah, I could have gone without learning that she was actually Big Venus at the end. I think she does a fine femme fatale. She's pretty hot. She kind of has this weird love-hate relationship with Roger, which is completely fine.
Yeah.
I really wish she wasn't a big robot.
Yeah. So I added Major Dotson on here. Poor guy.
Yeah, he's just a cop in a city full of big robots literally every episode, because this is episodic, right? So the mega-DAY-oos has to show up every episode. Mm-hmm. So, there's a big kaiju fight every episode. And poor fucking Dan Doshton is just like, well, I've got a gun.
I've got some cops. And that's it.
And a French girlfriend, I guess, in that one episode. I was just gonna say, he's Commissioner Gordon, right? Roger Smith at one point says, Dan Doston, he's a hard-nosed guy who believes in the integrity of the military police, but this city needs him. And it's okay, I guess.
He's the Gordon to Roger's Batman, but he's also, he's the Zenigata to Roger's Lupin. There's just enough of, a vague homoerotic antagonism between the two of them that I was like, this is goofy, but he's just a real tired man. And listen, we've established ourselves as an ACAB podcast, but he is a good character.
Yeah this is a fictional universe where cops are useful, so he's fine.
Sometimes they are ruled by awful mega corporations, so
yeah. What are you gonna do? Speaking of mega corporations, I just don't know that we can say much about Alex Rosewater.
He sure wears a white suit.
Yeah, I mean, he's in every Studio Trigger anime, there's a, billionaire villain. That's Alex Rosewater. He gets a big mech at some point and kills his dad. It does not matter.
Nope. He sure is. And he's supposed to be like the big shadowy villain. I'm not sure it works.
It's whatever, it's fine.
For reasons I think we're about to outline.
Yeah. But, he serves a purpose. It's nice to know that somebody's pulling the strings, even if we don't know why. It's just like, okay, something's going on here. And maybe that mystery is what made me appreciate the show in the first half.
Yeah, the second half dragged a little bit. So before we move on to our talking points, I do need to settle something. So both Aaron and I, Aaron, you watched the first couple episodes subbed, right?
Yes, unfortunately.
Okay, so Aaron watched the first couple episodes subbed. I did not. The giant robots are called mega-DAY-oos, as in big god.
Yeah, literally, it's not subtle. The big O, when he activates the phrase, cast in the name of God, ye without sin, right?
It's ye are not guilty or something.
Ye who are not guilty. Yeah, it's a reference to a thing in the Bible, basically. But it's not subtle. It's very clearly drawing from a biblical history.
Exactly. Some choices were made in the dub. The actors did call them mega-DAY-oos.
Mm-hmm. Which, so here's the thing. That's funny in two ways. One, because... Well, it's funny in three ways. One, because how did you fuck up mega-DAY-oos? It's so easy. Two, it sounds like you're talking about big shits.
Wait, hold on. I got a third one that's very specific to this podcast. It did every time make me think, you mega-douche. you mega-douche. God, I cannot wait for the basketball crossover where they all play in mega-douches. Oh my God, I would kill God with my bare hands for a noir anime sports show.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So I did pull out a poll on Twitter, just so we're clear. So if you voted in the poll, thank you. Very high participation in the poll for polls I usually put out. It is a 78-21 mega-DAY-oos to mega-DAY-oos. So thank you, folks who voted fucking correctly.
Yeah, thank you. God, please. Anyway, we had to get that out of the way because it was because I was like, I really want to be able to play Stardew Valley while I watch this. So like through the first 3 episodes, I was like, well, I guess I'm just gonna, because I was painting a mech while I was watching this, and I was like, oh,
appropriate.
Yeah. But once I figured out how to switch it over, I was shocked with the pronunciation.
It was always funny because every single time I thought they were gonna slip up and say mega-douche.
If you play it 100 times, on the 101st time they do say it. That's a little Easter egg for hardcore fans.
Okay, so Aaron, let's talk about how this show happened and why no one has heard of it.
I mean, all I know is what I saw from Wikipedia, which is that they put it out 13 episodes, and then people were like, oh, there's not enough interest, and then like 3 years later it got bought, and then they made the bad second half. But what else did you find?
So, okay, there's some nuances here. Nuance number 1 is the Big O started out as a gimmick for a toy. That is a fucking quote. So sure. We were working backwards from robots here. Somebody said robots would make it to noir, and that's where we started. So the thing about having a toy design is Bandai Hobby Division said not enough, and they wanted more robots. And so then more robot designs came around, which, by the way, these robots were specifically designed not to be practical, but to be macho. So that's why there's so many, like, exposed rivets and shit. Like, nothing in the show is practical. It's all for the vibes. But then once there were more robots designs, that's when a writer got brought on and then came up with the idea of a town without memory. And then we got 13 episodes of television that ends on a cliffhanger and got dropped for 4 years. And then the reason it got picked up again was because there was some international interest, even though it didn't do well in Japan. And American writers and producers got involved.
That's where we'll get you.
And the American writers and producers said that in the second season, they must immediately reveal the mystery of what's going on with Amnesia Town.
Good. Yes, that's because Americans, as we've shown on this podcast, are a bunch of fucking morons. We can't not have our secrets revealed. We have to have it laid out in plain language.
No fucking subtlety. The other thing I want to point out from the wiki, which is just fascinating, is they do draw direct comparisons to Batman characters. Like, it's not a secret. It is just a Batman anime with robots. Sunrise, the studio that animated The Big O, subcontracted for Cartoon Network and also animated Batman. So.
Oh, well, that works out great.
Yeah. So that's a little bit of Big O history for you.
I love the idea that probably a team of writers, but a writer was handed a line of toys and was like, make me a story out of these robots. And they came up with this. Honestly, they could have done so much worse. And like the story of this is like, the way that they executed this is very impressive, considering they were just like, so this robot looks like a mummy. This one looks like this one, but it's got jet boosters. And this one is if this guy had a big cool haircut.
Yeah. Oh God. Okay, we'll come back to this in a minute because we have a talking point, but I have some thoughts about the way this was written. The thing about the way this was written is that, Aaron, when was the last time we've seen a truly episodic show?
I mean, the last one I can really think of is Cowboy Bebop, right? Like, there is kind of an ongoing story both in Bebop and here, but like, you could pick any given episode out of these two and like, just slap it on Cartoon Network, on Toonami, which is, what they did, and be like, oh, okay, yeah, this is, okay, I missed, I haven't been able to watch these in a couple weeks, but yeah, no, this still works great. And like, I think that's kind of interesting, right? Like, I mean, as a writer, I do prefer like a big complete narrative arc. Like I said, I am an American. But like, I do understand like it is kind of useful to just be like, yeah, here's the characters that there's a pretty solid formula, and we're gonna fill in the stuff that you don't already expect with like some interesting stuff, like the Christmas episode I thought was actually like really fun, just because it's like, you get the big fucking mech battle, you get, Roger being bad at investigating, but you also get bits with him like buying Dorothy a present and like meeting the jazz musician who Dorothy thinks is shit. And like, I think that's really interesting because it does allow for a lot of characterization in between the formula.
Right. Because I mean, like, and I think that's the thing, right? Is long gone for the most part are the days where you fall asleep and you wake up to an episode of something. Because that's how I stumbled upon the Big O. Like, I saw the Toonami run. And it would be like between Inuyasha and Wolf's Rain or some shit. And I wanted to watch both Inuyasha and Wolf's Rain, and there was Big O in between. So like, why wouldn't I just sit through the Big O? And I remembered, the only thing I remembered about the Big O is it looked really cool and I really liked Dorothy. Two things I still agree with.
100%.
It's a cool looking show and Dorothy fucking rules. Like, streamers nowadays will make basically an 8-hour movie, and I think that's a big complaint for a lot of people in like the binging model, but you used to be able to just sit through an episode of television that had its own like encapsulated storyline. I think there are still some shows that do that, like What We Do in the Shadows. You can just kind of tune in and be fine. But for the most part, like a lot of the major programs we're seeing lately are 8-hour movies, which...
Well, like, even the fucking movies, right? If you go with the classic example of Marvel, right? Like, if you don't watch every movie, right, you're gonna be like, well, who the fuck are these characters and how do they all know each other? And, like, why do they have, a history? And, like, it does definitely just show the contrast of, like, what media used to be like 20 years ago.
Right, which, I mean, like, I'm not necessarily saying one's better or worse than the other, but yeah, it would be nice to have something other than needing to know every intricacy of a franchise.
Yeah.
Now, I have another question for you.
Yeah, I don't know if I can answer it.
Is this camp?
Leyla, I'm the token straight person on the podcast. I don't know if I'm legally allowed to say if something is camp.
Well, here's the thing. This is a safe space. And I feel like you've learned a lot between me and Michael and Josh. Michael and Josh from, famously, the Bible Boys. Did you get a hint of camp from this?
I mean, like, I don't know, because, like, I feel like it's campy in the way that all anime is campy, which is that it's over-dramatic and a lot.
It is a lot. I think I started to get the taste of camp when Roger
The Taste of Camp is the name of your memoir, by the way.
Oh man, the taste. I started to get a little taste of camp when Roger told Dorothy that she has to wear black to live in his house because we love a stunt queen. I really sealed in my verdict that this was camp when Schwartzwald showed up, and he looked like a mummy, and then his robot looked like a mummy.
Yeah.
And then Roger said the phrase, unbroken, it's now time to face the darkness inside me. And I was like, no, this is camp.
But see, here's the thing. Like, that's a line that would not be out of place in a Kingdom Hearts, but Kingdom Hearts isn't camp, I would say. Right?
You're not wrong is the thing. I think
so, like, what is the difference?
I mean, there's not enough stunt queens in Kingdom Hearts. If you, I think you could say 358/2 is camp. Because the organization is camp.
Okay, yes, I'll agree with that.
But the franchise at large is not camp because there's not enough stunt queens.
Okay, so is camp like people who are being a lot on purpose versus people who are being a lot and they're just annoying?
It's an inherent allotness that is so bad it's good. And I think, listen, a Dorothy clone shows up as Little Red Riding Hood and tries to kill Roger. That's pretty camp.
I mean, maybe. I guess.
It's just such a commitment to the aesthetic that it's borderline insane.
I suppose, right? If you're willing to go all out in the ways in which that the show does, I don't want to be making any definitions, but I can understand what you're saying. Like, there are parts of this that, like, wraps all the way around. Like, there's a bit where there's like a ghost mecha that shows up, and like everybody's like, oh, you don't have to be afraid of ghosts. Ghosts aren't real. But then it is very much like 100-foot big weird potato sack ghost, and it's like, okay, if they were trying to make me actually be afraid of this, I think this would be stupid. But because they're just like, yeah, whatever, it's a big fucking weird ghost, it's like, okay, I get it.
Yeah, exactly. I think, listen, I don't know if it's wholly committed enough to be camp, but it teeters on it in a way that I find very enjoyable.
So, I mean, I think what it boils down to, though, is just like, does this show work for us?
Did it work for you?
Kind of is my honest answer. Like all the stuff that we were talking about, like, that we enjoyed, right? The characterization, the non-overarching story stuff, like, I think really does work for me, right? I love Norman. I love Roger. I don't love Roger, but I love the ways in which everybody, like, interacts with him and is like, God, you're so annoying. I think that's fun. I think Dorothy, I just love a robot girl in general. Especially one that's, like, kind of mean. So, like, I think Dorothy's great. And I think the robots were cool. They all had, like, different distinct designs. Like the mega-DAY-oos, like, it has the fucking, like, biblical scripture that rolls across its chest in, like, a text crawl every time it launches. And then it's also got like eyes. Yeah, I mean, it's really good. But, like, also its eyes have, like, these marks that look like it's, like, crying blood. And, like, that's really great. I love that shit. But, like, a lot of the overarching, like, big capital S story stuff I thought was nothing. Maybe not nothing, but I thought it was like, I don't get where this is going. And especially the relationship between Dorothy and Roger at the end really soured for me.
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. We'll get into that at the end. Fucking, it worked for me for all the same reasons you just listed, where, like, baseline, all of the elements are fun. Again, love the big robots, love Dorothy, love all that. I like, just like you said, I like Roger getting shit on by everybody. I think that's a fun...
It's really good. If you make over $1 billion a year, you deserve to have everybody talk shit at you.
Exactly. And he takes it pretty well, you know?
He accepts it.
My problem with the show is that it is so derivative of everything else that I was just getting distracted by comparisons. So the noir thing, we have Cowboy Bebop, and not to mention the same voices, so I can't stop thinking about Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah, like you can't cast literally the same voice actors and not invite that comparison.
Right? And then, you know, when we read the summary for season 2, immediately all I could think about was Evangelion. Mm-hmm. There were a bunch of other comparisons that I was just like, every single time something happened, I would just draw it and be like, oh, this was like this other anime that came out around the same time. So it was just nothing wandered far enough away from something that's already been established by another narrative for me to like get attached to it and think it was like fun enough for me to invest time in season 2. It is also so derivative that the battle music for the Big O, every time I heard it, I was like, this sounds exactly like battle themes from Xenosaga. I swear to God.
Oh.
And this is the sound clip I was looking for earlier. The ending theme, the piano riff for the ending theme, sounds exactly like a song. So if this is the opening piano riff to the Big O theme. Sounds exactly like Céline Dion's It's All Coming Back.
Yeah, it's pretty darn close, huh?
I have had It's All Coming Back to Me now stuck in my head for 36 hours. I don't know what to do anymore. I don't have the vocal range. So for those reasons, like, I really couldn't... I like it, but I like it as much as I liked it when I would wake up to it, right? I'm glad I saw it. It's cool.
Yeah.
But if you ask me next year what was the show about, I'd be like, robots?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think it had enough memorable beats to really stick in there. You know, I'm glad we spent the time with it, but yeah, I don't think it's gonna be something that we bring up at the end of the year bracket.
And then the one memorable thing.
Yeah. So there becomes a part where like Dorothy starts asking Roger a lot of questions, and she's like, oh, you know, how do you know when somebody loves someone? And then like when she's like, oh, well, Roger, you know, like this guy that fell in love with his wife after they, you know, both had their memories wiped and woke up together. She's like, if we both had our memories wiped, would we fall in love? And Roger is like, oh, I don't know how to answer that. But like, especially here at the end, like it starts to seem like they are trying to seed a relationship with Roger and Dorothy, which is no good.
I just like it. Listen, it's not as bad as another property that shan't be named, which is not Naruto.
It rhymes
That's usually
with Dasha Schleime.
It's not Naruto. Usually when we say property that can't be named, we're talking about Naruto. Not this time. We're talking about the sequel to Inuyasha, Yashahime Princess Half Demon, which I guess I just named it, but whatever. You could reasonably believe Dorothy's in her 20s, right? Roger is obviously in his 30s, probably late 30s. Mm-hmm. So it's like, ugh, but it's not... Like, it could be worse. You know, like, my parents were 15 years apart, so it's like, ugh, once you get older, it's a little blurrier. But, like, if you're in your mid-30s, you're dating someone in your 20s, you're pretty gross.
Yes.
She is painted like a teenager is the problem.
They refer to her as a girl and a daughter a lot within the first couple episodes, which cemented her character as a younger person. Like, I never viewed her as anybody older than, like, 18.
No, I saw her as, like, 18, 19. It was
exactly.
It was super uncomfortable. It's... you can't... It is... Feeling protective over somebody in a romantic way is completely different than feeling protective over someone in a parental way. And Roger feels protective over Dorothy in a parental way.
You cannot cross those wires.
You can't cross those wires, Yashahime Princess Half Demon. Like, it it is gross to watch, right? And you have to sit there and ask yourself, who is this for? Because in theory, the Big O asks the question, what does American masculinity, parentheses, positive, look like from an outsider's perspective? That's an audience. And then Yashahime Princess Half Demon is for supposedly new watchers in the like 12 to 16 bracket, but also, you know, nostalgic, older, mostly women that remember the original property. And it's like, okay, well then you're positing to me that this demon raised this 7-year-old and then married her.
Yeah, you can't
Freaks.
do that. That's bad.
So, like, I just don't... And mind you, this is not a new concept, right? Like, that was a ship people had in the early 2000s, right? Like, these sickos were around back then, too.
Listen, we've always had perverts throughout all of history.
Yeah, perverts are not new. But it's just, like, it was so off-putting because, like, then why bother with Angel?
Exactly, right? And, like, that's the thing, is that because they... It seems like they kind of avoid it in the second half of it because it goes so off the rails that it doesn't matter, I suppose. But it does seem like they kind of lean into an Angel relationship there at the end. But also, she merges with the Big O and disappears to become the new Guardian. I don't care, actually. It's fine. But basically, they don't like, you know, formalize it, which is, you know, we're going to have to live with.
Right, which is, that ending is derivative of Evangelion. So it's like... Mm-hmm. And Evangelion, for as much as that franchise frustrates me, does it better. So.
Yeah. I mean, listen, like when you take something like the Big O that's like very clearly like started as like a we just want to make money thing, and then you just start, you know, going from there and taking, you know, beats and you know, themes from other properties, like, you know, it is unfortunately just the sum of its parts.
It's a very fun background. Honestly, though, I will say if you're an animation person, I think it's worth watching because it has some really clever reuse, but also the shape design is just crispy. It's beautiful. That show has a look to it, and it's I really liked watching it. But yeah, in terms of story and engagement, it was fine. I'm certainly not going to finish season 2.
Yep. But the idea of a franchise that started as a toy selling gimmick did give me... I feel like I've brought this up before, but I do like thinking about this. So I want to pose this question again, Leyla. If you were making a show that was just, you know, like this, episodic, so, you know, you don't really have to think too much about an overarching story, but generally made to sell toys, you know, what do you think your property would look like?
Are you asking me what kind of toy I'd make that could
start with the toys and then build the story out from there, just like the creators of the Big O?
Oh my goodness.
I can start if you want to think about it.
Yeah, please do.
So my first instinct is to go to the Dark Souls franchise. You know, so I think you just take all of the boss monsters from FromSoft games, and you basically take them and you're just like, okay, we got a bunch of bosses. People are going to play with these toys. It'll be great. From there, you can start just being like, okay, you got a Tarnished. You got maybe a Tarnished, like either... like whatever, you know, like the other hunters were from like Bloodborne. Like maybe there's like a hunter who is maybe an ex-partner, both in the hunting sense and the romantic sense. Maybe that's their counterpart, and they like always end up crossing over with each other, and then they end up having to team up to fight a big monster, which will be the toy that you sell. You know, maybe there is like another like third party that's like either a romantic interest or like a guardian. Like, you know, like a mentor that's like, hey, here's a new tool, or like, here's this secret information. And then maybe, you know, there's like a gang of lovable little scamps that runs around and gets into trouble. And I feel like you could have a lot of fun in the weird worlds of the FromSoft franchise.
I think you're right. I think I would want to put out a line of, oh my God, what's the word I'm looking for? Modular. I'm thinking of putting out a line of modular animal toys with like parts you can connect and disconnect. Mm-hmm. And then that way, clever kids can build their own fucking chimeras. And the episodic TV show I want to put out is about, it would just kind of be Pokemon is the thing.
Okay.
But the gimmick is that the kids have to build their chimeras and fight the chimeras. And I think you could have a lot of fun.
Pokemon meets Frankenstein. I like this.
I think you could have a lot of fun with a bunch of fucked up little dudes running around. You know, I'm thinking you could put some fucking horse legs on a squirrel. Really fuck that little guy up. You could get some fucking flamingo wings on a horse just for fun. There's a lot you could do for kids to both express themselves and really deal some damage. And you know, if the feathery and the hairy parts are groomable, that's always fun for kids.
Love a brush. Love a doll you can brush.
Yeah, I want something that they could have fun with at the time and then look back on and go, what?
Those are the best franchises.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we're going to be millionaires.
Yeah, I think so. You can send our checks to mortifiedpod@gmail.com. If you've got your own weird modular toy franchise that you want to pitch to us, you can send us a voicemail at 775-573-8882. And we will, you know, maybe we'll read it on the air. Maybe. If we like you enough, we'll do a whole episode based on your recommendation. Yeah. It's worked for at least 2 listeners.
In a row, which is crazy.
But probably not this year because we have the whole year mapped out, but we'll see.
We have 1 slot left.
One golden slot left.
If you really hit it out of the fucking park, who knows?
Who knows? Leyla, when we are not tempting our listeners with the one golden opportunity to get us to make a 45-minute episode about their favorite media property, where can people find us on the internet?
You can find me at LEYLSES on Tumblr, Twitter, and Instagram. I'm vibing as per usual. Aaron, what about you?
I'm on Twitter at AaronSXL, where I tweet about tabletop RPGs, health policy, and writing. I just posted my story that got published in Broken Plate, called Onward Christian Soldiers. It's about Thomas Jackson getting his arm ripped off by an angel. It's great. I also do tabletop reviews. That's at AA Voigt on YouTube. I just reviewed a tactical Souls-like game by Spencer Campbell, who's one of my favorite RPG designers, so check that out. I do another podcast with the aforementioned Bible Boys. That's at the Bible Boys. This week we were talking about the historical drama Risen, which I believe has to do with a centurion who is like hunting for Jesus's body. I have no idea. I hope it's funny and not a waste of 2 hours, but we'll see. That is always the risk with these shows. But check that out. Our theme song is Obsolete by Keshko from the album Filmmakers Reference Kit Volume 2. You can find more of their music at keshko.bandcamp.com. Leyla, with this episode, I don't know if I don't know. Something's not right. Could I have said something wrong?
No, sir. Nothing in particular other than the usual.
We'll see you all next week.